Have you ever actually stopped and wondered if you truly understand what's going on down there? Not just the basics, not just what you've heard from friends or seen online, but the real anatomy, the real structure, the real science behind how the female body works. Because here's the truth, most people don't. And that lack of understanding quietly creates confusion, frustration, and missed connection, especially in the bedroom. So today, I want to take you on a different kind of journey. Not awkward, not complicated, just clear, honest, and eye-opening. I'm Dr. Chloe Anderson, and this is Real Talk Bedroom. And by the end of this, you're going to understand female anatomy in a way most people never do, including what everyone keeps talking about but few truly understand, the G-spot. But before we get there, we need to start at the very beginning, because everything makes more sense when you understand where it all comes from. When a human body begins to develop, something fascinating happens. In the earliest stages of development, there is no clear distinction between male and female anatomy. For the first several weeks, every fetus essentially follows the same blueprint. There are two key structures present at this stage. The first is something called the genital tubercle. The second is the urogenital sinus. At this point, they are identical in all developing bodies. There is no visible difference. But then, around 10 weeks, something shifts. Based on genetic signals, the body begins to develop in a specific direction, and those same structures that once looked identical begin transforming into either male or female anatomy. This is where things get really interesting, because even though they develop differently, many of these structures are actually connected in origin. They come from the same starting point, and because of that, they are what we call homologous structures. That simply means they share the same developmental origin and often have similar functions, positions, and characteristics. For example, the genital tubercle. In males, this develops into the head of the penis. In females, it develops into the clitoris. So despite how different they may appear externally, they are deeply connected at a biological level. The same is true for other structures as well. The foreskin of the penis and the hood of the clitoris come from the same tissue. The scrotum and the outer lips of the vulva, also known as the labia majora, share the same origin. Once you start seeing these connections, something begins to shift in your understanding. Because instead of thinking of male and female anatomy as completely separate, you begin to see them as variations of the same original design. Now let's focus on what we can see externally. Everything on the outside is called the vulva, and this includes several key structures that each play a role. At the top, you'll find the clitoris. This is one of the most important parts of female anatomy when it comes to pleasure, and yet it's also one of the most misunderstood. What most people don't realize is that the clitoris is not just a small external structure. What you see on the outside is only a small part of the full anatomy. Internally, the clitoris extends much deeper into the body. It branches out, forming structures that wrap around the vaginal canal. It contains erectile tissue, just like the penis. It has a rich network of nerves and blood vessels, and during arousal, it becomes engorged with blood, just like a male erection. In fact, from a biological standpoint, the clitoris and the penis are incredibly similar. They respond to stimulation in comparable ways. They rely on blood flow. They are highly sensitive, and they play a central role in sexual response. Now, surrounding the clitoris, there is a fold of skin known as the clitoral hood. This can cover the clitoris partially or fully, and it can move slightly, similar to how foreskin functions. Below the clitoris, you'll find the urethral opening. This is where urine exits the body. And just below that is the vaginal opening. The vagina itself is an internal structure, and it's far more dynamic than most people realize. It's not a fixed shape or size. It adapts. It responds. During arousal, the vaginal canal actually expands and lengthens. It can increase in size significantly to accommodate penetration. And during childbirth, it can stretch even further. This adaptability is one of the reasons the female body is so remarkable. And then below all of this is the anus. So externally, there are three distinct openings: the urethra, the vagina, and the anus. Understanding this basic layout already puts you ahead of most people. But now we need to go deeper, because this is where things get even more interesting. Let's come back to the clitoris for a moment, because if there is one thing you take away from this entire conversation, it should be this. The clitoris is the primary organ of sexual pleasure in the female body. It contains thousands of nerve endings, more than any other structure in the human body. And for many women, stimulation of the clitoris is essential for reaching orgasm. This is not a preference. It's biology. And yet, this is often overlooked or misunderstood. Many people assume that penetration alone is the key to satisfaction, but for most women, that's not enough, because the clitoris is where the majority of the sensitivity lies. Now, this brings us to the topic that creates a lot of curiosity: the G-spot. You've probably heard about it. You've probably wondered about it. Some people describe it as a magic button. Others say it doesn't exist at all. So what's the truth? The G-spot is believed to be located on the front wall of the vagina, about 1 to 2 inches inside. If you were to insert a finger and make a gentle come here motion, you would be moving toward that area. But here's the important part. It's not a distinct structure like a button that you can clearly identify. It's more of a region, an area with a higher concentration of nerve endings. And interestingly, just above this area is something called the Skene's gland. This gland is sometimes referred to as the female prostate because it shares similarities with the male prostate in terms of structure and function. Some researchers believe that stimulation of this area, including the surrounding tissues, may contribute to certain types of sexual response. For some women, stimulation in this region can feel pleasurable. For others, it may not have the same effect. And that's where a lot of confusion comes in, because people expect it to work the same way for everyone. But human bodies don't work like that. There is no universal switch, no guaranteed response, and that's completely normal. In fact, when you look at the bigger picture, it becomes clear that focusing only on the G-spot can be misleading, because the clitoris, including its internal structure, is still the central player. Some of what people attribute to the G-spot may actually be stimulation of internal clitoral structures, which again reinforces the importance of understanding the full anatomy, not just isolated concepts. So instead of thinking about one specific spot, it's more helpful to think about the system as a whole, a network of structures working together, responding to touch, pressure, rhythm, and context. And this brings us to something even more important than anatomy: communication. Because no amount of knowledge can replace understanding your partner as an individual. Every person is different. What feels good for one person may not feel the same for another. Preferences vary. Sensitivity varies. Comfort varies. And the only way to truly understand that is through open, honest communication, not assumptions, not guesswork, but real conversations. Because when you combine knowledge with communication, that's when things start to change. That's when confusion turns into clarity. That's when pressure turns into confidence. And that's when experiences become more connected, more satisfying, and more real. So if you've ever felt unsure, if you've ever questioned whether you really understand, you're not alone. Most people are learning as they go. But now, you have a clearer picture. You understand how the body develops. You understand how the structures are connected. You understand the role of the clitoris. And you understand what the G-spot really is and what it isn't. And that puts you in a completely different position. Because knowledge removes uncertainty. And when uncertainty disappears, confidence naturally takes its place. So take this understanding with you, not as something to memorize, but as something to build on, because the more you learn, the more aware you become. And the more aware you become, the better everything gets. If you want more real science-based insights like this, make sure you subscribe to Real Talk Bedroom, because this is where we break things down in a way that actually makes sense. And as always, take care of yourself, because you're worth it.